Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first session of our Startup Gateway webinar series. My name is Mary Yazdani, CEO and founder of GenesisLink, and I'm delighted to be your host today. We are thrilled to have many of you join us as we dive into the evolving landscape of the Startup Visa program and how it impacts consultants, entrepreneurs, and key stakeholders. While we wait a few moments for others to join, if you can introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you are joining from. David from Halifax, hi. Hi. From Jamaica, hello. From Quebec, Edmonton, Toronto, perfect. From Toronto, Vancouver, Hong Kong, Vancouver. Oh, that's perfect. It's early in the morning in the Vancouver, so thank you for joining. From India, from Iran, Edmonton. It's great to see that we have people from all over the world, from Iran. You know that Iran has the most startup applicants, so it's not strange to see many Iranian on the webinar. Perfect. Before we get started, I'd like to thank all of you for being here today. We encourage you to make this an interactive session, so feel free to drop your question in the chat, and we will address as many as we can during the Q&A segment. If you registered but couldn't attend live, don't worry. We will send you the recording after the webinar. To keep this session engaging, we will also run quick polls throughout the webinar and at the end of each segment. So when you see a poll pop up on the comment box, please take a few seconds to share your response so we can tailor the discussion based on your feedback. Hello from Quebec, from Toronto. I think we can start now. Before we dive into today's discussion, I'd like to take a moment to introduce GenesisLink, the organization behind this webinar series. This will give you some background on who we are, what we do, and why we are so passionate about supporting startups and entrepreneurs in Canada. GenesisLink is a business consulting firm that specializes in helping foreign entrepreneurs establish their businesses in Canada, as well as supporting Canadian and permanent residents in scaling their companies in Canada. We provide a full range of service tailored to our clients' need, from early stage ideation and business planning to marketing, management, HR, financial, strategy, and R&D services. Over the last 5 years, GenesisLink has achieved incredible milestones. We have supported over 17 startup visa teams in successfully launching their business in Canada or expanding their business in Canada. We have assisted in over 200 PR applications to be submitted with a 100% success rate and no rejection rate to date. Recognized annually with industry awards for our contribution to entrepreneurship and business development. Now that we have set the stage, I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest speaker, Stuart Browne, CEO of Pycap, a venture capital firm and incubator registered with the Canadian federal government as a designated organization for the Startup Visa program. He is the co-founder of ChargerQuest, a leading electric vehicle infrastructure company that raised over $4 million and has operation across 7 provinces. Adjunct professor for the Master of Finance and MBA program at the Schulich School of Business, sectional lecturer at the University of Toronto, and an investment committee member at the Ontario Centre of Innovation and Ontario government-backed venture capital firm. Stuart, welcome. Can you please briefly introduce Pycap?
Sure. Thanks, Mary. And thanks, everyone, for attending. It's great to be here and to be able to connect with all of you. Pycap, as Mary mentioned, is a venture capital firm. We have about $20 million in assets under management. We have 17 companies in our portfolio. And we're also, as mentioned, a startup visa incubator designated organization. And we've worked with many companies over the last 4 to 5 years, and we're hoping to work with many more.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Stuart. So now I wanted to have an introduction to the webinar series and why we created this. The Startup Visa program is an exciting pathway for innovative entrepreneurs to bring their businesses to Canada. However, navigating this program can be complex with evolving regulations, application challenges, and due diligence requirements. This webinar was created to bridge knowledge gap, provide real-time updates, and offer expert insights from designated organizations, industry leaders, and legal professionals. Our goal is simple: to empower consultants and entrepreneurs with the right information, best practices, and key strategies to successfully navigate the startup visa process. In our upcoming webinars, this is just the beginning, and over the next few months, we will cover topics such as latest updates from IRCC showcasing successful startups and lessons from rejected applications, funding, compliance, and due diligence best practices, hearing from immigration experts, startup founders, and designated organizations. We will continue to bring you exclusive insights from industry leaders once a month. So stay tuned and follow us for updates on future sessions. If you have a topic you would like us to cover, let us know by emailing info@genesislink.ca or send us your questions before each webinar so we can address them during the webinar. Who are our future guests? CEO of different type of designated organizations, IRCC representative, successful entrepreneurs who received a PR and launched their businesses in Canada. Please note that we are not immigration professional. We are not immigration officer, immigration lawyer, or consultant. The information that is shared in this webinar is based on our insights and experiences and should not be considered as legal advice. For a specific legal or immigration related question, we recommend consulting a licensed immigration professional. We collaborate with experienced immigration professionals and we can help you connect with them if you need. What to expect from this webinar? Now let's dive into today's topic, the role of designated organization in the Startup Visa program. We will start by program updates, due diligence and progress report, and then how they influence the success of applications and future of SUV program. Great, Stuart. Let's dive right into our first discussion. Program updates and regulatory changes. Can you walk us through the major changes IRCC announced last year regarding the Startup Visa program?
Yes, absolutely. So on April 29th, and I'm sure most of the people tuning in are probably aware of this, there was a major policy change. And what happened is prior to April 29th last year, 2024, designated entities had no limit on the numbers of letters of support we could issue. But then all of a sudden, April 29th, they announced that from that point moving forward, at least I think it's till the end of 2026, we're only able to provide 10 letters of support. So that's a total of 5 letters of support per company with a total of 10 companies. So we have a quota of 10 companies per year that we're able to facilitate the immigration for. Another announcement that was made is they removed NACO and the CVCA as the associations that were overseeing the Startup Visa program, and IRCC has taken on that role themselves. In addition to that, they removed the peer review panel, which was an external entity that had members of industry on the panel that would assess companies that were being considered for rejection, kind of like a final sanity check. But they've now removed the peer review panel. And again, IRCC has taken on that role until further notice.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for the brief about the updates. And have there been any new communications, operational manuals, or policies from IRCC recently that it was sent to designated organizations?
There haven't been. Of course, there's been a lot of speculation in terms of what IRCC might implement as it relates to selecting companies and the ongoing roles of designated entities. But as it stands, there has not been, at least one that I'm aware of, any new guidelines or policy changes in that regards.
Perfect. And given that the SUV program is in place until December 2026, do you foresee any anticipated regulatory changes or discussion about modifying the program?
Um, I definitely think there is a risk of that happening because there's the whole immigration industry seems to be in a very transitional period, and there's an election coming up, which may cause a different opinion in terms of the direction that immigration should take within Canada. So I definitely think there is risk of something happening, but it's a little too early to speculate exactly what might happen.
Yeah, exactly. And we have also read the news from about IRCC letting over 3,000 officers go. What impact do you think this will have on application backlogs and processing times?
Well, that's an interesting question because the whole reason why they implemented the quota system, as they announced, was to help with the backlog because there was such a massive amount of applicants who have been put through the program because the startup visa program was so unbelievably popular. And so they made it so we could only accept 10 companies per year, as mentioned. But then, as you touched on the flip side, they did announce, I recall, that 3,300 employees were going to be let go within the next couple of years. I also recall hearing that maybe it could be because they're implementing some new efficiencies with using artificial intelligence. So I would like to think that their overall objective, which is to process files a lot quicker, will actually work, even though they've gotten rid of all of these employees.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. Thank you so much for your insights. So that wraps up this section. Let's take a quick poll for the audience. Which recent startup visa change has impacted your work the most? A is more scrutiny on designated organizations. B, longer processing times for work permits. C, difficulty in obtaining letter of support. And D, increased compliance requirement for SUV applicants. Please drop A, B, C, or D in the chat, and we will take a few seconds to read your responses. B, B, longer processing time for work permits. D, increased compliance requirement for SUV applicants. And A, more scrutiny on designated organizations. That's interesting insight from all of you. We have one C here as well, which is difficulty in obtaining letter of support. Perfect. Thank you so much for writing your choices and just mentioning the option that you think that's the challenge for you. Now we will go to the second segment, which is about the due diligence and progress report. So Stuart, let's talk about this. What is the importance of due diligence reports in SUV applications?
I think it's very important because my understanding is when a company goes under review, one of the things they look at is, did the designated entity perform sufficient due diligence on the company? Because as you probably know, that's part of our raison d'etre for being. Like, why is there a designated entity? Why is this structure set up the way that it is? Well, it's because we are seen as the experts within the venture capital and startup tech and incubator world. And we have this professional expertise on being able to identify companies and entrepreneurs who have the best chances for being successful and contributing to the Canadian economy. And so, in order for us to properly assess applicants who should be led into the program, our job is, of course, to perform due diligence. So, assess the company and make sure that it has the potential to be successful. And so, if there is a designated entity that is seen to be not performing sufficient due diligence, then my understanding is that IRCC can use that as a reason to reject the file, even if it's a good company.
And what a specific business progress indicator does IRCC expect to see from startups?
I believe that the visa officers can ask for anything they want within those progress updates. And when they're performing an audit on a company, because I think this is part of the strategy of IRCC. I mean, I don't know internally because I don't work for IRCC, obviously, but I believe they don't want to provide a checklist that someone could just fill in and say, okay, I have the right to be accepted into this program and get my permanent residency because I meet all of these checklists. So they want to be able to look into the business and say, okay, if you're an e-commerce company and you've been working at your business for a year and a half, why have you not done any marketing considering your customer are consumers? So they might ask a question like that. Mm-hmm. And it could be a totally different question than somebody who's trying to implement some cybersecurity for the banking sector. So that's why it's usually business specific. And I always give the advice to applicants that they really need to legitimately focus on creating a real company and progressing their company forward in a way that makes the most sense for their business model and the market they're operating in within Canada. And if they do that, then the theory is they should be able to address whatever questions might come up during an audit by IRCC.
Yeah, this is, I think, great point and great advice of not looking for any checklist, but looking for your business to be successful and establish whatever that it needs to be done, do whatever that, and follow the checklist that is required for a business to be established and to grow in Canada, rather than just looking for the only permanent residency checklist. That's a great point. But how you think that the startups should document these business activities and milestones to avoid any procedural fairness letters?
So I think that they have to be actively engaged in their company on an ongoing basis, and that has to be genuine. And so they have to have evidence of that and document everything to be able to show that to a visa officer if needed. Often I like to compare showcasing to a visa officer that your company is legitimate and that it's progressing, similar to how an entrepreneur might be pitching to our venture capital firm. So if an entrepreneur is pitching me for an investment, of course, as an investor, I want to see, like, does this company have the ability to be successful? Like, am I going to get a return on my investment? Is this the right team to be able to execute on this business model that they're presenting to me? And I'm not just going to have a gut feel about the entrepreneur and make a decision based on that. I want to see proof and evidence that they have traction and that they're progressing their business forward to extrapolate and basically use as an indicator into the future if the company has the chance to be successful. So when I think of visa officer, if I was a visa officer, I would be looking at the entrepreneur and the applicant in a similar way. Like, do they have that evidence and proof to show that they are going to set up a real business in Canada and contribute to the Canadian economy?
And yeah, that's perfect. I think that's great. Again, that's a great point that you mentioned here. And like everything is, because the main aim of this startup visa program was just bringing entrepreneurs with the innovative idea to Canada. So that's, I think, what officers are supposed to check when it comes to the also due diligence, making sure first the person is right entrepreneur and the idea is the right idea for Canada and is innovative and is scalable in global scale. So that's thank you so much for your insights. Now we know that navigating this due diligence can be complex, and we know consultants also face challenges. Let's do a quick poll. What's the biggest challenge in ensuring your clients meet due diligence requirements? And I think you can drop again your answer in the chat. A is client struggle with business progress reporting. B, lack of clear designated organization expectations for due diligence. C, gathering require financial and business documents. And D, clients don't fully understand what's expected of them. So let's take a few seconds here and see what are the responses. C, gathering require financial and business documents. Clients don't fully understand what's expected of them. That's a good one. D, D, B, A, struggle with business progress reporting, and C again, B. So, Stuart, I don't take this question for now, but since we have a couple of people that they pick B, and that one is relevant to designated organization and the expectation for due diligence, I will postpone this at the end for the Q&A section to ask you this, that can you clarify what is the expectation from your side for the due diligence? Now we will go to the, thank you so much everyone for just participating in the poll. And now we will go on the segment 3, role of designated organizations. What role do designated organizations play in ensuring compliance with this UB program? You have mentioned a little bit in the beginning, but if you can explain more.
Yeah, definitely. Well, as mentioned, I mean, at the onset, the role of all designated entities is to screen the applicants and make sure that they're the right fit for the program. And in seeing if they're the right fit for the program, of course, we want to see if they're the right fit for the Canadian market and the Canadian economy. Like, are they actually going to contribute to the economy? Because we have to remember, like, the startup visa program, it's not a refugee program. It's not a charity. Like, there is a specific reason why Canadians, the government, we want entrepreneurs like many of the clients that listeners are having on a regular basis. So it's a win-win opportunity. So we have to assess to make sure that the company, the applicant, is the right fit. So that's number one. But now it gets a little bit different when you look at the different types of designated entities. So if you look at angel groups and venture capital firms that are designated, their job is to commit a certain amount of capital. So angels are expected to commit $75,000. Venture capital firms are expected to commit $200,000 in an investment in the company that the applicants are using to apply for the program. Beyond that, there isn't that much, as I am aware, that those designated entities are responsible for. And this gets a little bit different with incubators, of course, because the incubators, it's just the start of the journey when we approve the applicant and we give them the letter of support, because then what we are obligated to do from that point forward is to provide business guidance to help the company, to help the entrepreneurs get established with their business in Canada and grow their company. So when we look at how it relates to compliance, that's the component that is related to compliance. Because IRCC, from my understanding of what they really, really want, is genuine entrepreneurs and genuine companies. And I feel they're trying to filter out applicants that have a fake company and they're just trying to use it as a vehicle to immigrate into Canada. But having said that, I also feel the most important thing to IRCC are the people that are coming over here, not necessarily the company, because there is no requirement for the company to be successful within this program. My understanding is you're not going to lose your permanent residency if your company fails. But the hope is that if you're a serial entrepreneur, who's someone who's determined to make a business successful, even if you have a failure, you're going to keep pushing until you come up with a business model that resonates with the market and you're able to achieve some level of success. Again, that's going to contribute to the Canadian economy, whether it's employment, gross domestic product, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that's excellent. And what are some of these red flags that you think IRCC looks for just, when they are assessing a CUB application? You have mentioned that they are looking for genuine entrepreneurs and just, businesses, looking at their profile. But is there any specific on the business side that they are looking and for them is a red flag? So if a company doesn't have this, it means that we have to do before peer review. And nowadays, I think they are asking for more updates. Are you aware of some red flag for IRCC?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you think of it logically, if the applicants, even if they're based in their home country while they're waiting for their permanent residency, if they don't have viable proof that they're progressing their business within the Canadian market, then I think that could probably be the biggest red flag. Even if they're gaining traction in their home country, I mean, that's, for me personally, that's an amazing indicator.
Yeah, yeah, I think this is a good point. So even we know that the processing time is just long. So you are recommending and suggesting them to focus and have some traction, even if it's in the back in the country, and also just having other countries maybe having some traction there. If
Yeah,
they,
progressing the business forward. And so one thing that we do within our incubation programs, we treat the program like it's a company in our venture capital fund.
Mhm.
And one of the things that differentiates a fund manager in venture capital versus other industries or other types of fund managers, like a mutual fund manager, is the fact that we're expected to get actively engaged in the businesses that are in our portfolio. We're growth investors, so we are very much focused on investing in a company and contributing to the growth of that business. And when I talk about growth, I'm talking about increasing shareholder value. So the
Mhm.
first thing that entrepreneurs are educated on when they join our incubation program is, how do you perform a valuation on your business? Because what they're doing at that point is benchmarking where their company was at when they started the program. And then we progress through our incubation program where we educate them again on identifying where there's opportunities to insert value in the business. In each kind of step of the way, they're accumulating this very tangible documentation to show that they are progressing their business and increasing shareholder value within the Canadian market. And such that if by chance they get an audit by a visa officer, they could have all of this documentation ready to show the visa officer that they are legitimately growing a real company in Canada and increasing the value of the business. And it's like I said, a tangible numerical presentation that they can make. And
And
personally, I think it puts them in a very strong position.
yeah, exactly. That's absolutely right. And my next question, based on hearing what you're recommending, is that, like, I know that this can differ from different designated organization, and it's not the same rule for everyone. But for Pycap, are you requesting any regular updates from the SUV teams while you are in your incubation program and they are waiting for their permanent residency, or no? Like how they are reporting the progress to you?
We have assignments.
Mhm.
That's our way to get the progress updates. Is we give them those tasks, and then they have to provide us the assignments. We bring it to our analysts. A lot of them are former students of mine from the Schulich School of Business or U of T, and they'll go through the assignments and then provide feedback.
Okay.
And then beyond that point, what we're implementing into our program is an audit of the companies where we kind of take the role of a visa officer, and we will give them a survey and then conduct interviews and try to find where the holes are, where the gaps are. Because
Understood.
often it's not just about having a great company and progressing it forward in Canada. As challenging as that is, it's also like, how do you present it in such a way that you show proudly to a visa officer, to IRCC, that you're meeting the objectives of the program and you're not setting off any unnecessary red flags because you're perfectly aligned with what they're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are your suggestions for startups and immigration professionals? I know that you made throughout the just answering the questions, you have mentioned a couple of good suggestions. But as a final question for this segment, what are your suggestions for a startup and immigration professionals to improve this application success rate?
I think choosing the right fit of a designated entity is a great idea. So getting to know the designated entity and the people running it who you want to work with, making sure that they are transparent and they communicate with you regularly and are very much focused on a successful outcome for their clients. So at Pycap, we like to look at our relationships with immigration professionals and the client. As soon as we bring them into our incubation program, we look at it like we're all on the same team. And what do we want? We want a successful business outcome and a successful immigration outcome.
Okay.
And very much focused on making sure that all the clients within our incubator get their permanent residency.
Okay, perfect. And now we are concluding this segments with a poll question. And the question is, what is your biggest challenge in working with designated organizations? A, finding the right designated organization to support my client. B, understanding designated organization selection criteria for startups. C, high cost associated with securing a designated organization's backing. And D, unclear communication or response delays from designated organization. Let's take a few seconds to read the responses. D, unclear communication or response delays from DOs. C, high costs associated with this. C, C, C. A, finding the right DO. C, C, and C. I think most of the answers are around the C, which is high cost that is associated with securing a DO. And we received a couple of also questions regarding the changes on the designated organization fees, which I will postpone. And after just seeing the result of the poll, I will postpone this question also for the Q&A section. Thank you everyone for participating. Now we will go to segment 4, which is future of a startup visa program. Stuart, given the evolving immigration landscape, do you foresee major shifts in the startup visa program over the next 2, 3 years?
Well, I think there's definitely the possibility of changes over the next few years. There's obviously been changes as recent as even less than 1 year ago, as we discussed, and there's going to be pressure on the government to make changes, and immigration is always a major issue in new elections that are happening, and we have an election coming up. So that may cause pressure for whoever's going to be in power to push policies forward that are in alignment with their political party. So I definitely think there is the risk of changes. What those changes are going to be is hard to speculate at the moment. Of course, I'm completely biased, but also a huge fan of IRCC and the startup visa program because as a university instructor who teaches economics and high level these business schools, it makes so much sense for an economy to be bringing in the best and brightest from all over the world, and then helping them get set up, and then creating these opportunities that it's going to be this cyclical, perpetual kind of opportunity for all Canadians to receive advantages from. It's like the perfect type of people we would want into this country. So I hope that because it makes so much sense to have this startup visa program, that they're going to keep the program in one way, shape, form, or another.
Yeah, I think, and also the beside that backlog that you have mentioned, also I think IRCC nowadays is looking into the effectiveness of the program, finding the holes, and then trying to resolve those one and improving the program. But since we don't have any also other business streams to bring in entrepreneurs, I believe that, like, they will have one stream, and hopefully that one is a startup visa that will continue. And before we close, I had another question from you. Um, do you recommend for the just people who are looking into a startup visa program, and entrepreneurs or immigration consultant, if they have a clients, to apply now or wait a little bit to see with the political situation in Canada what's going to happen and then make a decision that time?
Okay, so I definitely recommend that if they are serious about this program, that they apply as soon as possible. And they definitely should not wait. And even if it's a situation where they're just finessing their documents and glossing up their pitch decks, that sort of thing, I would err on the side of get in as fast as possible, because if there are changes that negatively affect the abilities of the applicants, it's better that they have their documents submitted as early as they can before those changes come to fruition. A great example is the changes that happened in April 29th. So there was this cutoff where if a designated entity did not have the commitment certificate supplied to IRCC by midnight of April 29, then they would be pushed over into the new policy. Whereas if they had their application in prior to that policy change, then they would have been within the older system. And I've heard of many applicants out there that were, Mary, doing exactly what you're saying. Like, they were waiting to see what would happen because it was a transitional period. And as soon as April 29 came and went, they were scrambling and wishing that they had supplied their applications in when they had the chance, before the prices increased and before the competitiveness increased as well.
Yeah, 100% agree. And as you have mentioned, we also had a couple of groups that they had the same thing. They were delaying. Some of them they are waiting. We were waiting the whole team, and everything was ready, but we were waiting for the IELTS score or one document from one of the members, and then they put this new regulations and policy in place, which was affecting the whole team. Yeah, I agree with you. And we have a final poll for this segment. And this is the question: where do you see the startup visa program heading in the next 2 years? You can share your thoughts in the chat. A, more regulations and approval criteria. B, faster processing time and better support for a startup. C, increase investor and designated organization involvement in screening applicants. D, more collaboration between consultants, startups, and designated organization. So let's see what are the responses. And by the way, thank you so much for just sharing your question here. We will go to your questions on the Q&A section. D, more collaboration between the ecosystem. A, more regulations and approval criteria. A. Like, yeah, I think with the experience of April 29, everyone now is just, afraid or concerned about if they are putting more regulations and making it harder and harder every day. That's good to see that, like, almost everyone, they voted for the same thing, A. Oh, now we have a couple of D as well. More collaboration between consultant and startup and DOs. Perfect. Thank you so much. So this takes us to the Q&A section. That was an incredible discussion. We have covered everything from regulatory updates to the future of the startup visa program. Now let's dive into your questions. Some of you have already submitted great questions before the webinar, and we will start with those. But if you haven't asked yours yet, now is your chance. Drop your questions in the chat, and we will get to as many as possible. So let me look at the questions. Could you kindly let us know about the pricing? So how much Pycap charge? So I will, we have a couple of questions, as I have mentioned, regarding the pricing, and I will just, merge them into one question, that what, like, changes have been happen after April 29 changes on the prices of the getting the LOS, obtaining a LOS. And I'm not asking specifically about a Pycap. I'm asking in general, because all our audience and also you are aware that, like, there was a, like, I don't know how to call it, but it was a shocking change on some of the designated organizations fees, which was not expected at all, or it was not at the time that they made a decision to just apply for the startup visa program. They were not considering those costs. So what are the factors that you think it was impacted the pricing from the designated organizations?
Well, I mean, not to sound too academic here, but it was basically a supply and demand situation where all of a sudden there was a shift in the supply curve of letters of support, uh, drastically to the left. And the demand basically stayed the same at that point, and laws of economics naturally shot the price up for letters of support that were being provided by the designated entities. But if you look at it from the designated entity standpoint, a lot of them had these very large carrying costs, like big office, tons of employees, and their whole business model was set up on having unlimited abilities to sell letters of support. And then all of a sudden they can only do 10. And so the only way that they were able to make the economics work and still break even was to increase the prices of the letters of support that they would be selling. So that's the whole reason why the prices of entry went up so drastically.
Yeah, and thank you. I think that I'm just looking at the other question. They are asking if you have any opening in existing groups, and then do we make two different retainer? Can I have your email for contact? So I think the email will be provided at the end, and also we will send you, as I mentioned, we will send you the recording of this webinar. Plus, there are a couple of questions that I'm sure we won't have time to answer all of them, so we will answer those questions as well and address them in the email that you will receive after soon after the finishing the webinar. The next thing is the a specific question that you ask about GenesisLink pricing or Pycap. I should mention that we are not aiming, our target and goal is making sure that this is an informative session and is to increasing the knowledge of our audience. Is not a marketing part. The only thing that we have mentioned about our companies in the beginning was for you to know us and know that who is hosting this webinar, who is our guest. It's not at all with the marketing purpose. So all those questions that are specifically for GenesisLink or they are for Pycap, we will answer you directly. We will send you an email, and I won't just bring those questions now, and I won't ask Stuart. But the thing is that why are seeing only one program which supports prospective entrepreneurs? There are so many other avenues for individual peers. In case you have any insight. We are not seeing, so as I have mentioned in the beginning, that why we decided to have this webinar and why we are passionate about startups. I'm an entrepreneur. GenesisLink is not my only firm. I was helping other startups to just grow in Canada and establish their business, also Canadian as well, or young entrepreneurs to establish their business. So building those startup and the ecosystem is our passion, and this is why we are trying to focus on this immigration stream specifically, or business immigration streams. We are not saying, I'm not an immigration consultant or lawyer, and I'm not promoting any immigration streams. But since we are focused more on the startup ecosystem, and a startup visa is matched with our direction, that's why that we are covering here the just the startup topic. And the other thing is that also we received a couple of requests from the attendees were not able to attend today, but they were asking for other business streams. If we can have some sessions, we will see if we can do that, and we will accommodate it. Pycap is not on the priority processing list of IRCC. Do you work with the designated organization who are on the priority processing? Yes. And Pycap, I think that there is a explanation, maybe Stuart, that do you want to mention about this priority processing? Is Pycap able to just make one a startup team on the prioritized list or no?
Yeah, great question. You're right. We are not on the priority processing list, and that's because we're not a member of the Canada Tech Network. And the ones that are a part of the Canada Tech Network, from my understanding, they have some sort of government backing or involvement, or they're a nonprofit. So all of the private ones, from my understanding, like Pycap, who will kind of operate on our own, independent of government funding, are not members of CTN and thus are not on the priority processing list. But from my understanding, we could get clients on the priority processing list if we were to make an investment into those companies of $75,000.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And the client does have a project working with IRCC. They are asking again couple of questions. We are receiving several questions that again I have to mention something about GenesisLink services. We will respond to you in email. I apologize for not answering here since the whole webinar is getting recorded. I don't want to just talk about too much of the advertising. We will send you responses with email. And once the LOS expires, how easy it is to get new LOS? Stuart, do you want to answer this? What happens if someone's get a LOS and they are not able to just put everything else, all other required documents together, and the LOS expires?
Okay, so I might be stepping a little bit out of my realm here. So full disclaimer, I'm not an immigration professional. I'm not an immigration consultant or lawyer. So I'm just telling you from my perspective. So please seek professional guidance on that question. My understanding is that you have 6 months to apply. You're able to renew your letter of support as long as no one on your team has submitted their permanent residency application. But again, please consult with an immigration professional to make sure that you get the right information in regards to that question.
Okay, perfect. And are there any specific innovative ideas or sectors innovations that IRCC or designated organization are interested in?
Some designated entities have a preference, and I believe they will indicate that on their websites. For me, we are industry agnostic, likewise with innovation. So if we see a company that is a good fit for the startup visa program, regardless of the industry, regardless of whatever they're even calling innovation, like it doesn't necessarily have to be these high-tech kind of buzzwords that we always hear about, like artificial intelligence or blockchain or Internet of Things. If they have an innovative way to manufacture rugs using organic material, then I believe that would qualify as something innovative, as long as the intellectual property is owned by the company and they're able to physically bring that into Canada.
That's perfect. And let me see if we can take one or two more questions here. And they are asking, this is not now, but before they wrote to us that now that peer review, there is not any other, just, peer review, how they are evaluating, if they have any concern, how they are doing this.
Yeah, you know what? That's like internal IRCC things that they are doing. They don't seem to be consulting with a peer review external panel. My hope is that they are going to bring in a peer review panel again, because in my opinion, it makes so much sense. My advice, which I gave like towards the beginning of this conversation, is to just focus on making a great business in Canada. do what you need to do and make your decisions focused on addressing that. And if you are challenged in any way, the hope is that you're able to address any questions or any concern by being able to show that you're serious about your company. You're making decisions that are for the betterment of your company, whether a visa officer agrees with it or not. It's your ability to appeal and educate them on why you're making certain decisions and doing something or not doing something, which I think could put you in the best position for success with your PR and your company as well.
Okay, perfect. And how the clients should communicate with designated organizations. So I know that you cannot answer on behalf of all designated organization, but can you please explain about the podcast?
Absolutely. So you could contact us directly. You could email us. Well, you're going to give the email address, but info@pycap.com is a great way to get in touch with us. We have a contact form on our website. We also have an application form on our website. Connecting with me personally or members of my team through LinkedIn is very acceptable. And yeah, feel free to reach out.
Perfect. So another question is that after submitting the PR application, who helps the applicants to maintain the business and documents? Do the designated organization or GenesisLink or someone from outside? So again, we will answer this question on the emails that you will receive. And they are asking if is there any format for the progress report that you recommend them to follow, or are there any specific sections on the progress report, or how they should present that progress? Is it just uploading all those documents in one folder and share it with IRCC or designated organization? And also they were asking if they should share these updates with IRCC directly or they should share it with the designated organization.
Okay, so about the specifics in terms of providing documentation to IRCC, I think connecting with the immigration professional is the best course of action. I can't really advise on that. We are always happy to work with immigration professionals to provide documentation to IRCC and give our perspective in terms of the wording of those documents. But for us, it's very much driven by the client, so the applicant and the immigration professional. So I think so. What if I could just give one like little piece of advice in that regards is really do take that team approach seriously. Like I think that everybody should be on the same page. The applicant, the immigration professional, the venture builder if one's being used, and the designated entity. Because when communication is being provided to IRCC, I believe that IRCC very much values a strong relationship between the designated entity and the company. So it's and if there's a misalignment in the communication, I believe that would be a red flag to IRCC.
Perfect. So they're asking, I know this is the last question. I was supposed to ask one or two more, but now I got three, and this is the last one, I promise. Could you please speak about processing times for the work permit approval? Just you can mention your insights, and then I will share also my insights as well.
Sure. I don't know the specifics of work permit approvals or permanent residency approvals because I've seen it all over the map. Even recently, like we've been having quite a few permanent residency approvals. Some of them seem to be happening within a year. Some of them have been in the system for a few years and they have not been processed yet. And then that's the same on the work permit side. I don't know what's normal in terms of processing times. I hear sometimes it differs from one country to the next as well. So I can't really comment on that. But Mary, maybe you might have more insight there.
Now, for us also, for different groups that we were supporting, we saw, not recently, to be honest with you, but before we saw within 2-3 days receiving their work permit. They were, I think, so lucky as well. And we had team that it took them over a year and they still haven't received anything. We had team that they received the AOR 1 month after submitting their PR. We have teams that they submitted a PR application with the same quality, everything. Like, I'm saying that this is not because this idea was good or the other one was not good. I think it's also the immigration office that is processing, how the backlog that they have, how busy they are, and just, all so many other factors will play a role here. Background check absolutely is something that on also work permit or PR application that may impact the processing time. But for us, we recently received for two of our groups the work permits, and that was one of them was after 6 months, the other one was 8 months. But before the changes was announced, we were receiving within a month or 2 months. So this is up to now. Maybe they change it tomorrow or everything change. Always what I'm saying is that like IRCC, you cannot rely on one number or one experience. Just, it really varies based on different people, and different factors play a role. Thank you so much, everyone, for just, for sharing your insights. And also thank you so much, Stuart, for just, the insight that you share, for your suggestion. Before we close, here is one last poll. How valuable was this webinar for you? We encourage you to use emoji reaction if you want, and you can say very helpful, good, somewhat helpful, and not useful at all. Um, let's see what are the answers, and then closing notes. C, we don't have C, but I know the third option is somewhat helpful, need more clarity. And we have a smiley face, which is good, good, very good event. I'm happy to see the comments here. Perfect, very helpful. Thank you for the event. Thank you so much for all of you. This has been an incredible discussion. Thanks to everyone who shared their question and insight, and also participated in the polls. If we didn't get to your question today, don't worry. You can always reach out to us, and we will be happy to connect with you and answer your questions even beside this webinar. Before we close, here is a quick reminder. If you haven't yet registered for our Startup Visa Network, just please do that and stay updated. You will receive a replay of this webinar along with key takeaways and also the response to your questions. Our next webinar will be announced soon, so stay tuned. We are excited to share some really good information from a great speaker. And thank you again for joining us today. Thank you so much, Stuart, for taking the time. And we look forward to seeing you at our next session. Thank you and have a great day.
Great. Thanks, Mary, and thanks, everyone. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.